So welcome everyone to our session tonight. So hopefully you know why you're here. We're here this evening to discuss hosting a digital event and sort of the ways in which you can do that. So hopefully to give you some inspiration, and then there's a bit of a Q&A surgery at the end if you've got any specific questions about how or what to do. So housekeeping, as we've already said, if you wouldn't mind remaining muted for the presentation, that would be really helpful because it means we can run through everything, but also because this is being recorded and put onto YouTube afterwards, it just means we can have the presentation and then keep questions separate. If you have questions, as I say, please don't hesitate to pop them in the chat box and we will deal with them at the very end in a first come, first served. And again, just a reminder that the session will be recorded and shared with other organisers. This is not going to be a private video like we've done before. The idea is it's not by invite only, so none of your faces are visible, none of your names are visible because we're just recording the presentation bit, but just so you know, we're recording the whole thing and it will be going up onto our generic YouTube channel. So, introductions. This is a little bit about us, so hopefully you already know who I am or know who we are, but if not, just a quick rundown. So my name is Charlotte Davey, I work for Heritage Lincolnshire. We manage and coordinate Heritage Open Days for the county. Obviously Heritage Open Days is a big national festival. We've been managing the festival for Lincolnshire since 1994. We're supported by a fantastic steering group made up of people from all across the county. So there's lots of stakeholders from councils, sort of local authority representatives to history groups and people who sort of have a lot of input into organisations and groups that celebrate heritage throughout the county. We produce every year the annual festival booklet. Obviously this year and last year has been a little bit different because of COVID. It's been a slightly smaller print run, but usually it's 20,000 copies that we produce and go across the county. We are running these workshops as part of our sort of engagement and to try and help organisers use Heritage Open Days as a sort of springboard to get back into normal life after COVID. So the point of these sessions are they're not just for Heritage Open Days, they're for life. So to sort of steal the not just for Christmas traditional saying. So yeah, the idea behind them is what we will talk about here in all of these sessions means that you don't just have to use it for your Heritage Open Days event. We've tried to keep it quite general with the idea that you can then use that for your sites going forward. So what are we covering tonight? Tonight we're going over a few different things. I imagine it's going to take about, I'd say 50 minutes to an hour to run through this, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards. What we're covering is, first off, is digital technology right for you? That's really important. You may have made up your mind already about whether or not you're doing a digital event, but this gives you some reasoning behind why you might choose to do it. Getting started, so basic equipment that you'll need to do a digital event, the types of event, and just to give you some inspiration on what kind of events might suit you, top tips for accessibility, and then there's a Q&A session at the end. So our first stop on this tour is a digital event right for you? So what's brilliant about digital events is they're a great way to engage with people, but the whole point behind it is you need to think about using this technology for the right reasons. It might seem a little strange for us to start with this question, but it's really important to remind you that technology isn't the solution to everything, and sometimes going old school, i.e. in person, is the easiest, cheapest and most impactful way of communicating with your visitors. For example, why bother presenting static text and images on a screen when a printed piece of paper will achieve exactly the same thing? However, used correctly, digital technology has the potential to offer new and exciting ways to present your places and stories whilst protecting staff, volunteers and visitors, and most importantly, staying within the government guidelines as well. So, some reasons for wanting to use digital technology. The best reasons really is the fact that you're inspired, you're using technology to open new possibilities for visitors. That might be, bear in mind with COVID, that the possibility is actually visiting your site in some way, because it might be that otherwise you will be closed. It's about making the best use of technology's range of functionalities. It's about making sure your event has a strong and compelling narrative behind the tech. So the tech won't fix all your problems if you don't have a good idea of what your event's going to be. If your reasons for using digital technology are along the lines of you think it looks cool, and you want to use brand new technology and you'll think about how it will fit with your event later, that's not generally a good reason. It's not a solid foundation for using it. Also, not a great idea if you think you can perfectly replicate your in-person experience. Unfortunately, you can't. And I'll be completely honest with you, the feedback we got from last year's Heritage Open Days is people loved seeing digital events where they couldn't visit other sites. But the feedback was people always prefer in-person events because it's about getting out and celebrating. Sorry, bear with me. I was just allowing someone else in. Lastly, a lot of people think that the way to a teenager and a younger person's heart is through technology. Well, sometimes you can say that people will be engaged with that. Unfortunately, if you're thinking that technology is the only way to engage younger audiences, there are other ways to do it, and there are better ways to think about it. So that won't fix your problems if you're trying to get to a wider audience and that's all you're going for. So, but say we've come over this hurdle, you've gone, actually, do you know what? We're doing this for the right reasons. This is what we want to do. So how do you actually get started with going digital? Now, it's a lot easier than you might think. The basic tools, for anyone who has never done a digital event before and are wondering what you need for it, first off, you would obviously need a computer or laptop. That's a really good starting point because that's what you're going to be doing most of your prep on. It's helpful to have a smartphone for some events. It keeps you in contact and it's great for accessing social media platforms. An internet connection. I know that sounds ridiculous to say. You think, of course, you need an internet connection, but also think about having a stable connection. So we talked about using the smartphone, for instance, to do tours or to showcase your site. Remember that not all places do have a strong 4 or 5G mobile phone connection. So if you can't connect to Wi-Fi, make sure you've got a strong enough signal to host an event via whatever you're using. A digital platform. So we recommend you essentially will need somewhere to showcase your event. So the most popular ones are social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. But you can also use your website, or you can also use other platforms which have been made to present information. And we'll cover some of those later. Things like Story Maps or Google Earth. They provide it for you, but you might need to register for an account for them. And lastly, time. Digital events can take longer to put together than in-person events. I can't beat around the bush with that. I'm afraid that the only thing that it will probably save you time on is the fact that it won't be a full day opening. Often they are super easy to set up. However, you will also have to think about things like the after impact. What I mean by that is if you have produced an online talk and you want to upload it to your website, remember the talk bit is the actual event, but actually you're going to have to factor in time to upload the talk to the website. In addition to that, you need to be prepared to answer comments and questions, especially if you're not doing something live. People will probably want to follow up on that. So there'll be a period of time afterwards where if it was a live event, in-person event, somebody might ask you then and there. But if they come to your talk, they watch it a day later, you might get an email through as a follow-up saying, oh, I saw your talk, but I'd like to hear about this. So just bear that in mind, that there will be, it won't, I don't think it will last forever. You know, you'll get a surge of interest straight after you do it. But it's just important to factor that time in as well. So if you want to go a bit more advanced, so if you're actively increasing your digital presence and have a little bit of budget to spend, you might want to invest in a few extra bits of equipment that can actually make a big difference to the quality and the output of what you create. The three that we've gone for here are the tripod and smartphone mount. So they're actually quite affordable. They're about £25 to £30 just for a basic setup. And the idea is if you are live streaming or if you're trying to capture footage of something, it keeps it nice and stable. You know, if you're recording it by hand, there's nothing wrong with recording it by hand, but if you want to create something more professional, have a think about having something like that because it will keep things stable. Digital camera as well. So we've talked about how you could just use your smartphones. Most smartphones now are built in with pretty good cameras. But if you really want to go for that professional level and you have a bit of budget to spend, maybe think about having a high quality digital camera. You can get ones that take videos, you can get ones that are just for pictures. But if you go for a DSLR or a high-end digital camera, you will essentially mean that you've got that bit of kit for future as well. You don't just have to use it for events, you can use it for your own marketing materials and things, but do be prepared, because digital cameras can be quite expensive. So I'm only suggesting using that if A, you already have one, or if you have a volunteer who has one who's willing to take photos for you, or if you have a little bit of budget left in a pot, because they tend to be quite good bits of kit that will last a long time and take quality photos for years to come. Lastly, you've got a smartphone compatible mic and gimbal. So the mic, I'm hoping, is fairly self-explanatory. It's great if you're doing audio-based tours. So say you're recording something and you want to talk on it. Again, if you've got a smartphone, it will capture that. Most smartphones are built in with a mic. Well, they have to be, otherwise they're not really a phone. So they will record audio as well. But if you're in a difficult filming environment, and what I mean by that is if you're outside, smartphones on their own can sometimes pick up wind and other things. If you've got a tiny bit of budget, I mean, they can, the beginner ones start at £10 to £15, so they're not hugely expensive, and it can make a big difference to your audio quality. The backup to that as well, secondary bit of kit, is what's called a gimbal. So gimbals are essentially the equivalent of a tripod mount, but it's a handheld one. So it's essentially keeps your footage level. It's easier to hold, it's more comfortable to hold. It's a bit like what you see in the picture there. It's a handle that supports your smartphone. And it gives it a slightly more professional finish. Some even help you take panoramics if they have plugins attached to them. And we'll talk about panoramas and 360 images a bit later on. But if you do want to sort of go down this line, expect to pay about £70 to £100. These ones are less cheap. So again, these are just some options for you. I'm not saying you have to get them. They're completely optional. They are literally just, if you are doing a lot more digital, it may be worth thinking about them as an investment, because these will help you achieve a professional quality that you possibly can't with just a starter kit that we talked about. So this is the key part of the talk this evening. So which digital events might suit you? And what I'm hoping to give you here is a bit of a smorgasbord of options and ideas that you can use. Now, remember, although this is in the spirit of Heritage Open Days, these can be used at any time. So if you are responsible for the events on your site, have a think about if you can use any of them, because some of them have such high levels of impact and maybe don't require as much work as you think they would. So I wouldn't spread yourself too thin. So although I'm going to be suggesting a lot of things you can do, if you're unsure, it's your first sort of foray into digital technology, I'd pick one. And then you can always develop from that later. But let's go through it and we'll see what you think. Okay, so these are the big four that I've gone for. I realise that most of you tonight, if you choose to do a digital event, it will probably be one of these four. These are the ones that you'll probably have heard of, that you've seen, especially during lockdown. These are the ones that have been very popular. So we'll go into more detail on them in just a moment, but just to summarise, so a virtual tour, we're talking sort of, it's a virtual tour of your site or your event, and this is aimed generally at an experience which has no in-person contact. So this is maybe a behind the scenes tour of somewhere where somebody's filming it, but the idea is if you cannot open your site, a virtual tour might be the way forward. Hybrid tours are very exciting. They're a good idea. Hybrid tours are in-person events. They use digital technology to provide more information and also provide or support a site in delivering a low contact event. And what we mean by that is it doesn't require staff. There's not a lot of touching, because people experience the site in person, but with the help of their smartphone and some pre-prepared information you've already set up. We've got live streaming as well. This has been hugely popular. This probably has been the biggest standout one over COVID. Live streaming has been huge. And it's people basically doing live showcases, tours, panels, Q&As. But as I say, all of this live. So people have been engaging with it. They've enjoyed it because the engagement is as if they are there in person, but they get to engage via their keyboard. And the fourth one is video conferencing, which is what we're doing tonight. So Zoom is a type of video conferencing. It's perfect for talks, lectures, panels, things like that. So let's go into some more detail about what these look like. So your first option for a virtual tour is to do something like a panorama or a 360 tour of your site. Now, what's brilliant about these is they are great for showcasing interiors, whole buildings. They're brilliant for big impact views. So if you look after a site that has a brilliant view, that could either be the top of a church tower, it could be the top of your building, it could even be if you have a lot of greenery around you, if you know there's a fantastic view off a hill, or you're doing a tour of somewhere near you, sort of a walk. That is brilliant for this because it gives people a sort of feeling as if they're there. What you'll see there, it's not my picture. You can see that it's branded all over. I've completely stolen it, just because I couldn't find any of the good examples of Lincoln 360s. But that's a 360 of the cathedral and the castle up at Castle Hill in Lincoln. So the idea is it enables you to capture more than just a single snapshot of a scene by stitching multiple pictures together. Whilst a panoramic image only includes the horizontal viewpoint, a 360 one is slightly different in that it includes a view of everything around you. So the one you see on the screen is a 360 view. Viewers can turn and move around the images, they can look at the surrounding environment. Now, a lot of modern smartphones will actually include this feature to take panoramic images, and some even have 360 functionality. The newer ones often have 360 functionality built in. If it doesn't mean that your smartphone can't take 360s, it just means that you'll need a third-party app. So a really good one is, we've probably all heard of Google Street View. You think that Google Street View is just its own, you know, the little Google car that travels around with a camera on it. It actually, if you download it, it actually enables you to do your own Street View if you want to. So it's completely free. You know, you can use that, download it, but that's a good option. And you could also get an app called Panorama Camera, which just it latches onto your camera app, and it just means that you can take panoramas with it. Creating the image is basically just a question of following the instructions on your phone or your app, and this is the really important thing, keeping a steady hand. So this is where if you do have something like a gimbal or a tripod, this will really help you make sure that they stitch up properly. Once you've got the image, you can upload it to Facebook. You can publish it either through the Google Street View app. You can use, there's a fantastic image management platform called Flickr. That's Flick with an R on the end. Or there are a few 360 photo viewers out there, and you can add text to it as well to tell people what they're looking at. Now, although we've done like a street view here, where you can see the castle, if your building has some wonderful rooms, it might be an idea you can do. You don't just have to do one 360 view. You can basically do a 360 view of all your rooms. It will probably take you, I would say, give yourself about 20 minutes, and that's being very generous per room. And that's only because you might want to take a few different ones to make sure they stitch up properly. But that's one really good option, especially for somebody who can't open and you don't want to do something like a live tour. That's a great way to do it. Now, next up, we've got Google Earth. We originally, when we were talking about this last year, we talked about Google Tour Guide, but Google Tour Guide, unfortunately, what they've decided to do is streamline the things that they offer. So Google Tour Guide is being switched off in June 2021, and then migrating all of the usability to, well, they actually already have migrated all of the usability to Google Earth. So if you've ever used Google Tour Guide before, that's going away completely. So make sure you transfer anything you've got on there. But Google Earth is now taking over, and you will be able to do tours from Google Earth. Now, what's really cool about this is it details itself as the world's most detailed globe. There's a huge amount of versatile tools on it which let you actually draw on maps. They let you add photos, they let you add videos, you can customize your view, you can collaborate with others working on the event. You can even embed sound files if you have audio to go with the project. So if you wanted to talk about something you're seeing, you can use that. They've tried to frame it as a next-gen tool for providing guided tours around the globe. So it's ideal for storytellers, scientists, not-for-profits. That's the thought process that's got into it. Now, what's really great about it, I've had a play around with it myself. It is easy to use, I would say. It has a professional looking finish. It's very flexible. It allows you to add your own information, your own pictures, and you can actually go worldwide if you want to. So if your site has connections worldwide, there's no reason why you can't hop about on the map. So what I'm thinking of is, I know we're celebrating a lot with the Mayflower at the minute. So if you're doing anything Mayflower themed, if you use Google Earth, then you can pop across to Boston or sort of other places in America, and sort of go back and forth and lead people on a tour that's actually global as opposed to just in Lincolnshire. You can, the only issue that I've had that we found with this is obviously the street view images themselves are limited to what Google already has unless you upload them. So if your property, if you want to do a Google Earth tour of your property and it's off the beaten track, i.e. if nobody's added it to Street View, you can showcase it on a map, you can put a pointer in, but you won't be able to get the same sort of images that the Street View uses, where they actually show you as if you're standing in front of it. So that's the only con to it. But we have talked about how you can contribute to Street Map as well. So if you wanted to do a combination of the two, do a panorama and upload it, there's no reason you can't do that. The only thing you need to make it happen is a free Google account. Just register for it. It's completely free. It gives you access to Drive and all sorts. And just have some pre-prepared text and pictures ready for it. Now, this one I'm a little bit biased on because this one is my favourite. I love this tool. I used it last year, and I taught a few people how to use it. In fact, if you got the email from me today, you'll have seen that there is a video from last year's training session that goes more in depth into showing you how to use Zoom and Eventbrite and things like that. ArcGIS Story Maps is a really cool platform that was developed to help storytellers. They call them storytellers, but we might call them tour guides, we might call them curators, sort of people who specialize in engagement, basically. And what it does is it works in a very similar way to the way Google Earth works. The only difference is I find it slightly easier to use in that it has the ability to click and drag. So it's very much a case of you can click things and drag them to where you want. You can make it look the way you want rather than having to use a predefined template. It's super flexible. You can add your own media, you can add videos, you can add text, you can add maps, you can add interactive maps that move around, you can add audio files, anything you can think of, you can add it. And it actually has a worldwide reach as well. So if you publish this, there is no way, unfortunately, you can't make it private. It's once you've published it, it is sort of out there to the world. But that's actually kind of cool in itself, because what you'll go into their sort of their collection, they call it, where basically people from all across the world can access your site. So if you include some things in there about some links to sponsorship, to how to get involved, how to visit, it just helps with marketing on a slightly wider viewpoint as well, because there are people who will just browse through. And obviously then the people you're trying to target, you can provide a link to your actual your story map. Now, the cons to it are some features, unfortunately, are paid on this. Now, we're trying to encourage you to do as much as you can for free. The idea of this isn't for you to spend money. They have some cool features, but the more expensive, the features that you have to pay for, unfortunately, are the handy features that make them collaborative. So the issue you will unfortunately have with it is if more than one person is working on the story map, you can only have one login that accesses it at a time. So there is no way to collaborate on it. The only way you could do it is sharing the password and username, so having a generic one for the site. but even then it won't let you work on it simultaneously, so you'd have to swap back and forth as to who's working on it. And the other thing is it is either in draft or it is published. So unfortunately, if it's still in draft, unless you give somebody your login, other people can't see it. Again, that's a paid feature. Unfortunately, it's part of the collaborative tools that they offer. So that's one of the drawbacks to it. But if you think you're going to be working on this on your own, at least you're going to be doing the story map yourself, and other people are going to feed you information. It shouldn't hopefully be too much of a problem. The only thing you need to make it happen is you need to register for their free account, and you just need to have your pre-prepared text and pictures ready if you have them. So that's a good way to start, and I enjoyed it last year. I found it easy, and I wouldn't say that I'm a technophobe, but I sometimes struggle with the newer technology, and this reminded me very much of just sort of almost like a publisher or a PowerPoint, just clicking and dragging stuff into place. So I enjoyed that. So moving on from virtual tours, we now have hybrid tours. When you think of hybrid tours, the main one that I'm going to sort of promote and say is a good option is the use of QR codes. So you've probably seen them before, you've probably heard of QR code. It essentially means a quick response code, and it's essentially a fancy barcode. It usually comes in a square shape, but you can get them circular now, and the idea is they are scanned by smartphones. Now, users just need to scan the code. They use an inbuilt reader or app on their mobile to access whatever media has been linked to that code. So it can be web pages, videos, images, anything like that. Now, you create your content online. So your video, your web page, whatever it is, have it all ready, and then you use a free QR code generator to link this content to a specific code. Now, I've mentioned a few things on here tonight, so I will be doing a follow-up, and I'll provide you all of the links if you wanted to have a look for yourself at some of the things available. So I'll provide you the QR code generator we use, and you can have a go if you want to. Once you have the code, you print it out, place it at a relevant point around your site. It's always fairly good practice to include an alternative web address underneath the QR code just as a backup, and you'll see that, I don't know whether you can see my clicker, but in the one that says Manchester Art Gallery, just at the very bottom, you'll see they've included the web address there as well. Now, all you need for this, you need a computer or laptop. You need, if you want to test it, you will need a smartphone, because it's smartphones that have the technology built in to read QR codes. And obviously, if you're going to print them out, you need a printer. So you don't have to get them printed on fancy card or sort of display board. You can literally just print them out on paper and they still work. They're brilliant. Now, what's good about these is they are great for self-guided tours. So it takes the having to have a tour guide there. You can give them the information. It means they can also stand back. So if you have things that people want to see and read about, you're not having people, and we're thinking about COVID and social distancing, you're not having them crowding around one point in a room. So if they can scan it and then step back and read the information, it means they can space out and they're more likely to space out. It also doesn't detract from the general experience. So in the long term, not even thinking COVID anymore, if you have a site where you're trying to keep it looking fairly natural, you don't want a lot of signage, you don't want a lot of interpretation, these are absolutely great for that, because you can have all the information digitally, and then it's just a little tiny box somewhere that has the QR code on. Just draw attention to it and it's ready to go. And you can also link to lots of different media. So it doesn't have to be your own media. If you have connections or links, if there's a particular YouTube video that illustrates your point, if there's a document, as long as it's got a web address, you can essentially link to it. So that's a really good a good option. Now, the cons to this is obviously we have not all moved into the modern world of using QR codes. So even myself, I don't use them very often, but you know, I know how to use them, but they're not that prevalent yet that I think it's an inbuilt response on how to use them. So it will either require visitors to have a smartphone that can read QR codes, or you will have to provide them with the technology that can do that. Some places do. You see museum refurbishments that invest in iPads and smartphones and things that actually belong to the museum. So it's not out of the question, it's just something to think about. And then the other thing to remember is this is what I would call more of a facilitator tool. It's not going to create the content for you. The idea is it will require you to create the content online, and then this is just your way of sharing it. So do bear that in mind. This one I'm very excited about because this one I actually found out recently. A lot of what we've gone from today is some of it's our experience, but I've also used some of the hints and tips that the National Heritage Open Day site has provided, and one that they recommended was this one. So this is LZI Travel, and they will help you create a hybrid tour with an audio guide. So they are essentially a free audio guide development platform, but they actually offer a lot more than this. So you can create full-on virtual exhibitions that include high-res images, text, descriptions, audio narration, all of that. You can even create outdoor walking trails linked to Google Maps. You can use smartphone GPS systems to trigger narrations when people get to places. So that's how cool and high tech it is. So as long as somebody's got their GPS turned on, if they're following your tour, as soon as they reach, as soon as their GPS pings that they're in the right place, it will automatically trigger the next event. So that's quite cool. But what's even more impressive is this is fantastic for engaging families or people who are keen to actively engage with heritage, because you can create quests that actually challenge your visitors to reach different landmarks and complete objectives. So give them a checklist, give them a quest, make them feel engaged and passionate about getting to that next point on the tour. And they have to complete objectives before they get to the next step. So, I mean, that sounds pretty fun. I've seen some videos of this. I've not seen it used, but as I say, this has been a huge recommendation from the National Heritage Open Day site, and it's free to use. So it's just however much time you want to get into it and sort of learn how to use it. Because the downside to it is it does unfortunately require a little bit of time and patience. So getting to grips with the technology, I had a look at it today and it looks fairly easy to use, fairly simple to use, nothing completely outlandish. The issue is what it's going to require is you to carefully plan your route and narrative in advance. You will also have to physically actually walk that route to make sure there's no snags. You'll have to walk it before and after. And aside from text descriptions, you'll probably on your walk also want to take pictures and potentially record audio narrations actually in place, so you know what you're talking about, what you're looking at, and you can describe it. So, but you can do this with a smartphone, that's super easy. So again, the pros to this are it's great for a self-guided tour around a town, building, or landscape. It's good for virtual exhibitions. If you already have a tour for your site, there's no reason you can't make it an audio tour. So use it and actually create the audio tour yourself. Use LZI to do that, and then you've got it for future as well. The cons are, as I say, if you haven't already got that tour established, don't underestimate how much time it does take to plan your route. We recently did an explorer trail, or I did, for Sleaford, which was like a family trail. And it took a good 2 months to get all of that together. I had to walk the route. It's a long route around Sleaford as well. I had to walk it about 7 times, just because I couldn't remember where bits were and I needed different pictures. So do bear that in mind. And as I say, that does make it more time consuming, but the impact is huge. And as I say, I maybe wouldn't do this for a Heritage Open Days event unless you want to go absolutely spectacular. But if you think you'll get more use out of it for your site, you want to use it in future, then I would definitely say have a little look at this. All you need for it is a computer or laptop, a smartphone and internet, and then the other bits and pieces you can get as you go around. So the pictures and things to sort of fluff it up, make it more interesting. So you don't want to do any of those. Don't want to do a hybrid tour or a virtual tour. So what about live streaming? Live streaming essentially can be used to broadcast anything from a curator talk to a woodworking demonstration. Anything you can think of, you can use live streaming for it. Aside from being informative and entertaining, live streaming is all about the interactions between the presenter and the audience. It offers the ability to respond to questions and actually take actions in real time. So the engagement levels are right up there. All 3 of the live streaming platforms we're going to go through essentially offer the same core service, so you can use whichever one you prefer, but there are a few important differences which will affect the one you choose. So we'll start with Twitter. Twitter uses a service called Periscope to power its live streaming service. That doesn't matter, it's different from the other two. It offers very similar functionalities to Facebook's service, such as adding guest speakers. You can alert your followers, anyone who follows you on your Twitter account, you can tell them. But the main point of difference is that there are no privacy settings available for this stream. So if you are broadcasting live on Twitter, you can't do it for a select number of people. Basically, anyone who follows you or logs into your channel will be able to watch what you're live streaming, so you can't have a guest list. It is, however, super flexible. Again, you can live stream anything you want. It's easy to use. It allows live interaction. It does, however, require someone willing to be a camera person. I mean, you can do it yourself, but it tends to be quite a lot to think about if you've got to talk and also hold the camera. So it requires someone willing to talk. That's the other thing. So obviously the whole thing about live streaming is it's so they can engage with someone. So if you've got somebody who regularly talks to the public, see if they'd be willing to do it. It is a very different experience if you've ever talked to the public, because you are talking to people who aren't there. You know, they might be there on a digital, but you can't see them, you can't interact with them, you can't judge. So just check to make sure the person who usually does your talk, who you're planning to live stream, that they're okay with that. And then this will be true, admittedly, with all of them. Because it is live, you might require someone able to administrate comments on social media. Unfortunately, we live in a world where you do get internet trolls. That's what they're called. So they're called trolls, and what they do is they set out to basically just criticize or create problems or just be thoroughly horrible people online, really. So if you already have social media accounts, you might already be familiar with them. It's exactly the same, but there's always the chance that they could surface during a live stream. So there is no way you'll be able to talk and possibly record yourself and actually do the administrating as well. So it's best to have at least two people, somebody who can basically keep an eye on the stream and sort of monitor for that. But also on the pro side of things, you know, if you're interacting with people in the audience, then they can also read the questions out. If people comment or ask questions, your administrator will do that for you as well. Now, what it requires, all you need is a computer or laptop, though that's more for them if you're going to be moderating. All you need to actually live stream is a smartphone and a Twitter account. If you wanted to, you could use the three things we recommended, the mount, the gimbal, the mic, to get a better quality, but that is completely up to you. That's just if you are doing these regularly, have a think about it. So that's Twitter, but if you don't have a Twitter account, you might have a YouTube account. YouTube is a bit of a strange one because YouTube has always been designed as being a video sharing platform. So it's great for sharing videos that you pre-recorded. We will be using it to showcase this event tonight. We're going to be putting the edited recording up there. And the thing about it is the easiest of the three that we're talking about for people to access. You don't need an account to access YouTube. Some people do, some people don't. You can watch videos whether you've got a login or not. So for an audience who perhaps don't have YouTube or social media, this is a really good platform to use. It obviously supports high definition video. So if you do have a digital camera and you can film, it does up to super high, I think. So which I think is 2,888K, something like that. So higher than you'll probably need anyway. So it's a big, it can take really good images. And obviously, if you've got a channel, you can keep live streams on there if you wish to. You can tick a box and it just automatically uploads it for people to access. The only thing to be aware of with it, it's a really peculiar feature that YouTube has, which is if you are broadcasting live, this one you really do need a computer to do it. Unfortunately, it's got a bizarre system where you cannot stream live from a mobile phone, from a smartphone, unless you have 1,000 subscribers, where that's a lot of people to be subscribed to your channel. It is unlikely, especially if you're just starting out using it, that you are going to have 1,000 people subscribed to your YouTube channel. So I would say YouTube is not ideal for some things because I would say it's great for having somebody sat behind a desk and sort of answering questions or talking or demonstrating something they're doing with their hands in front of them. But unless you're willing to cart your laptop around an event, it's probably not going to be the right platform for you. So it's, as I say, it's a bit of a more complicated setup because you actually have to think about what you're recording, what you're using. And just bear in mind, as I say, you cannot use a smartphone at the minute. You can't use a smartphone to broadcast live unless you've got that number of followers. So lastly, in terms of live streaming, we've got the Facebook Live. Now, this is Heritage Lincolnshire's preferred one, if I'm honest. We find this one the easiest to use. The video you see there is from a gentleman called Devon Townsend, who's actually my husband's favourite musician. He did a lot of live streams of concerts, basically, on Facebook Live, where people paid, and he donated to all sorts of hospitals, NHS, things like that. He raised money, and he did it through Facebook Live because you can sell tickets for it. You know, they don't have to be free events to use Facebook Live. What's nice about it is you can actually live stream direct from your page. So if your organization has a page or you have a personal account or something, or a group, you can go straight from there. You can post it in there. It means you can control and limit who sees your live stream. You can say whether you just want it to be your followers. You can say whether you want it to be public. You can say whether it's just people in a group. It gives you a huge amount of flexibility on that. Viewers don't necessarily need a Facebook account, though it does make it complicated. Facebook is not friendly to people who don't have Facebook accounts, and it does mean they end up going through layers and layers just to sort of not have a Facebook account. So just bear that in mind, that if you have people who want to watch but really don't want to sign up to an account, you might get a few sort of tech questions on and saying, well, how do I actually access it? Because it will make them jump through hoops not to. In terms of marketing, though, you can set up sort of alerts for scheduled live streams. So it will send notifications to all your followers at an hour, 20 minutes, and 1 minute before your stream starts. So that usually increases the number of people because it reminds them that it's taking place. And it has some really helpful sort of supporting information. So Facebook does a lot with its FAQ videos and things that show you how to use it. We have also created in our video that I was talking about before, we show you how to do live streaming, how to use Facebook to set up events. So if you want more detail on how to do this, have a look at that link in the email we sent you this morning, and that will take you and you can see what you can do with Facebook. Now, as I say, it doesn't mean that it's without its issues. So the cons are still the fact that you need somebody willing to talk to a screen. And again, we would also, especially Facebook and Twitter are probably the worst out of the platforms for attracting people who post sort of comments which aren't helpful, is what I would say. I'm going to put it nicely and say comments that aren't helpful. So I would definitely say on Facebook, you want an admin. You'll want somebody to keep an eye on that, so you're not distracted while you're actually live streaming. So do bear that in mind. That will probably be a two-person thing. You can also record this from your smartphone or your computer. I left the asterisk on there by mistake, so ignore the asterisk. That's just from the YouTube one. So you can, whichever one's easier for you to use. Obviously, if you're taking someone around an event, the smartphone would be better because it's more mobile, but computer, laptop often has better video quality. So completely up to you. So before we move on to the last bit, I'm going to give you some top tips for live streaming if you've never done it before. I would say if you are broadcasting using your smartphone, have a think about investing in a tripod or the gimbal, because it will make sure that your footage is stable. So make sure that if you're sort of pushing ahead with this idea that you want to keep doing live streams, it's not a huge investment to improve things. So have a think about that. Light source is an important one as well. Never ever, if you're ever doing a broadcast, don't have the light behind you because it will black out your face. You'll essentially your face will be in complete shadow. People won't be able to see you as you're talking. It will also affect on the film quality and make it a bit more grainy. if you are doing a live stream event, I should have put this as tip number 1 really, just to stress how important it is. You are live, and the benefits of that are amazing in that you can actually interact with a live audience. So it's not just you who's live, the audience is live as well. So if you're doing a live stream event, make sure you are being responsive and interactive. If people ask you questions, take the opportunity to answer them on the live stream, because it makes them feel more engaged. It's as if they're there. And it helps with your levels of engagement. So you know, there's no point in doing a live stream if you're not able to respond to things as they happen. So have a think about that. Again, we would highly recommend having a moderator on hand or an administrator, so somebody just to back you up, who can manage things like comments, who can share with you the questions as they come up, who can give you suggestions and also put you at ease. So if you're the person doing the live stream and you're the one talking, you'll have somebody there that you are looking at, that you are talking to, and it can help put you or your volunteer or whoever's doing it at ease. And lastly, always end your stream with further suggestions as well. So use this as a marketing opportunity. If when you come to the end of the stream, obviously thank them for attending, thank them for being there, but then say, learn more, find out more, subscribe to our newsletter, go to our website, go to our GoFundMe page, you know, whatever you want. Just try and use it as a bounce, because it keeps you've generated a lot of energy within the live stream. So encourage people to do something with it and actually sort of help your organization out there. So lastly, for our big 4, we've got video conferencing, and I am going to name a few different options, but the one we're going to focus on is Zoom, which is what we're using today. So hopefully most people are quite familiar with it. So if live broadcasts aren't for you, then you might want to consider using video conferencing instead. So as I say, there are a few different options, but to be honest with you, our favorite and our recommended one is Zoom. All you need to do is create a virtual meeting and invite participants like we have for this session tonight. Now, this is where it comes into it, because there is some pricing involved sometimes. So free accounts, if you want one, they're completely free. They have the same functionality as paid accounts, except for the fact they limit you to 40 minutes, which is incredibly restrictive. If you are doing quick 15-minute sessions, you're fine. You won't need a paid account. If you think you're going to go above 40 minutes, if you're doing a talk that lasts an hour, the pro version actually costs $11.99 a month. So it's £12 a month for a subscription. It enables you to host a virtual meeting, something like, I think, up to 30 hours. I'm not sure why you'd want to do a 30-hour conference unless you're doing some sort of marathon fundraising event. But if you wanted to, you can have a 30-minute conference on there, and you can have up to 100 participants as well. So have a think. So I don't want you to spend money if you don't need to, but if your organization doesn't already have a paid Zoom account, it may be worth considering one, because it does seem like it's going to be quite a heavily used platform in future, especially with COVID. I think their stocks and shares have gone through the roof. Sort of Zoom are now one of the most successful companies because of COVID, so everyone's sort of using them. What we would say though is, before you go out and actually pay for it, have a sign up of a free account and just see how it is. Even if you just use it personally and you want to just have a quick family conference, you know, test it out, see if you're happy with the tool, see if it does what you want it to do. It gives you an idea, and you know, there is absolutely no charge for the free version. It's just, it will remind you at 40 minutes, it'll kick you out. It gives you a reminder a few minutes before, but it will kick you out and you'll have to do a new meeting. Now, we think it's fairly easy to use. There are a lot of video tutorials, and if you've never used Zoom before, from a hosting point of view, again, that video that I was talking about earlier, we start actually off with Zoom, and Hannah, my colleague who specialises in it, she takes you through how to use it, what you can do, how you can use it, how you screen share, etc., etc. So if you are doing a talk and you're hoping to use Zoom, have a think about that. What I will also say, as well as, is in our effort to help you out as organisers. Now, we can't unfortunately lend it out to other organisations except for during Heritage Open Days, but if you are hoping to do a talk, an online presentation, if it is for Heritage Open Days, and providing it's not booked, we will support you. We will set up, you can use our account essentially. So one of us, probably myself, will act as your admin. So, and what we can do is I'll provide you with a link that you can send to people. I'll start the meeting and I'll keep an eye on your chat and things. So it's just to try and help you out that if you don't have a Zoom account and say this is you only want to use it for a one-off talk, we are more than happy at Heritage Lincolnshire to help you out with that. So so if you're willing to do the talk, we'll support you. You can use our Zoom account, and we'll help you manage it as well. So that's just something we're putting on the table for you, that if you are interested, let us know and we can sort that. The only thing we say is we only have the one Zoom account at the minute, so it will be on a first come first serve basis. So if you are thinking about doing that, let us know as soon as possible and we'll get it booked out for you. So as I say, pros of this, great for smaller events, good for lectures, debates, discussions, quizzes. You can also record it. So as I say, we're recording tonight. You can set it to automatically record, so then you can use it on your website. You can upload it to YouTube, whatever you want. And the other thing with the con with this as well is I talked about Heritage Lincolnshire being your admin for it. If you are doing your own session, you might want to consider having somebody as an admin who can keep an eye on things like the chat. If you have something like a waiting room like we had tonight, it means that you don't have you're not having to think about multiple things, because you can have somebody letting people into the waiting room, etc, etc. It's not the end of the world. This one I'm doing for you tonight, I don't have an admin, it's just me. You can manage it, but it can create just small awkward pauses like we had earlier, where you just have to stop to let someone in or something like that. So all right, okay, so other options. Right, this bit I think is super fun, and I'm hoping that somebody takes me up on this offer. If not now, then later on in the year, if you want to do something really special for your site, I'm going to give you 3 options of things you could do. 2 of them are super easy. One is more complex, but could have worldwide reach. So geocaching. Geocaching is a really interesting pastime which has developed kind of alongside COVID, if I'm honest with you. You might have heard it, you might have heard and done it before. It's not a new pastime. It kind of evolved a little bit out of orienteering and people who sort of enjoy orienteering and sort of flagging and things like that. But in a nutshell, if you've never heard of it, geocaching is the world's largest treasure hunt. It works by using GPS coordinates and clues to help players navigate their way. Usually they'll be using their smartphones to help. It'll help them get to a specific location where they have to find a hidden physical container called a geocache. All it is, as you see from here, is a plastic box. It's usually, ideally, it's waterproof, and then it can stay out there. But what you see there is a geocache. Inside is usually a logbook for those who found it to sign. They can leave a note. It could be your visitor book, whatever. You could also leave items in there if you want to, for the next person to pick up. But obviously, you'll have to think about that from COVID as well. And the idea is, I know it sounds like an unusual pastime, but it's actually become so popular that there are apparently more than 80,000 individual geocaches in the UK alone. If you're interested in this and want to take it up from a personal perspective, the link there will show you how to play. It's also the link we recommend going to if you want to find out about how you host it. Some geocaches are even in extreme locations. There is one, by all accounts, at the summit of Mount Everest. They even have some that divers have taken down to shipwrecks. But to be honest with you, in Lincolnshire, we don't really expect you to go that far, so don't worry about it. It can provide a fun way for visitors to engage with your site. It has also been utilised quite effectively by the National Trust. They've used a lot with their parks and their gardens, so that's a good idea. So the nice thing is as well, you can actually use objects within your cache and its placement as part of your site's interpretation if you wish to. All you need to do to get started with it is to create an account with geocaching, which is free. There's no charge to it. They again have a whole section on the website that tells you everything you need to know, the rules of it, and how you let your visitors know about it as well. So all we can say on that one is happy hunting. This one is by far going to be the most complicated thing we're going to suggest. But if you're going to, this is the one that if you do it, the likelihood is you're going to get worldwide attention, because it is challenging to do, but done right, it can sort of draw in attention from all across the world, and people all over the world will actually have a go at it as well. So did you know you can use Google Docs and Forms as escape rooms? If you didn't, then you can join the club, because up until I was chatting to the Heritage Opens team about what we're doing tonight, I didn't know either. And this is another one of their suggestions, and I've had a go at it, and it's actually really good. So if you wanted to have a go yourself, so the idea is that Google Docs are traditionally used for individuals and teams to create, share, and organize documents like files and spreadsheets. However, a fantastic gentleman called Anthony Smith recently transformed how he was using it to turn it into an interactive digital escape room. Now, people can either work alone, they can work as part of a team, but essentially the concept is that users have to navigate through a seemingly endless stream of documents and pages. They have to crack codes, they have to find keys, solve puzzles along the way to escape. I can't really describe it unless so if you've ever done an escape room, it is literally a digital version of an escape room. So, and if you haven't, the idea is it's just a lot of hidden clues and hints in text that people have to find and then use to crack codes elsewhere. So they might have to unlock a door by finding a code. So it's like a virtual door, it's a picture of a door, but they have to enter the right code to get to the next screen. So it's that kind of thing. And again, I'll share the links around, but this is completely free. Somebody did this for fun. Assumedly when they were furloughed. They don't give you much information about it. It's just a guy who wanted to have a go at doing something, but it's brilliant. And I will warn you that you can spend hours on it if you're not careful. But if you are looking for something to do and you don't want to do your normal Zoom quiz, but you've got a group of people you want to sort of get together with, sort of digitally, maybe have a think about having a go at the escape room, because it will kill a few hours in an evening, I promise you. So Google the Escape a Game, the one by Anthony Smith, is slightly complicated to set up. It's not undoable, it's just the way he's done it is he's obviously very confident with Google. He knows how to link between documents and things. Perfectly doable. I'm not saying that there aren't people who will be able to do it. You will be able to, but it is slightly more complicated than our second suggestion. So essentially, the second link is to a Harry Potter escape room, which is the same concept. It's a digital escape room, but that uses Google Forms instead of Google Docs. Now, the difference is Google Forms has kind of built-in support for helping you link from page to page. So it tends to be a little bit easier to use than Google Docs, because you don't have to sort of use the special sort of links and things. You don't have to do that yourself. The forms will do it for you. So again, if you want to have a go, the Harry Potter escape room is the same concept. It's slightly shorter than the escape game one, but it's still really good. It's still completely free, and you can see it in that link. If you would like to know how to do this, I could do a 4-hour session sort of showing you the ins and outs of it, but there is a much better way to do it, which is to watch the how-to guide, which I think is about 15 minutes on YouTube. Obviously it demonstrates it for you, and you'll have to have a go. You'll have to replicate it in your own Google Docs, but it's really clever. It shows you how to do it using the Google Forms. So please do have a go, have a look at it. And please, even if you don't do it as part of Heritage Open Days, if you do something like this as part of your site, tell us, because we will celebrate it. We'll help you write the press releases, because there are so few people who have done something like this, that whenever somebody does add to the escape rooms, it does get sort of worldwide attention. So we'll help support that. We'll make sure you get the interviews with BBC and things like that. So that's, you know, a bit of an aspiration for you if you feel like you've got a few hours or a few days to kill. So the last one is one that we've actually done, and I'm going to show you a quick video of it for anyone who hasn't seen it already. So Minecraft. If you have children, or if you are a gaming enthusiast, there is no way that you have not heard of Minecraft. It exploded onto the video gaming scene about 2011. It's essentially what's called a sandbox game, but the way I want you to think of it, if you're not familiar with it, Lego, it's essentially the digital version of Lego. You can use it to create anything you want using 3D blocks. So it took a little bit of a while before people got on board with this, but museums and other cultural institutions have now done a lot with Minecraft. They've done art competitions with Minecraft. They've done all sorts of things. So they've asked people to create their own reimaginations of the past. They've asked them to, they've actually provided their own pre-made world for visitors to explore. They've had organisations actually using Minecraft to provide interactions actually in the museum. You know, if they're trying to do a sort of reimagination of what a site looked like, rather than spending sort of thousands of pounds on sort of digital mapping technology and getting a specialist in to do it, some of them have even just used Minecraft to give it a go. So you know, there's a lot of functionality there, and what I'm really proud about is we have actually tried this ourselves. In fact, I learned how to use Minecraft when I was furloughed last year. Obviously we couldn't do any sort of real work, as it were, but we were still struggling for social media and things. So whilst I was off on furlough, it came about and somebody said, would anybody be willing to have a go at creating something Minecraft based? So I volunteered, and I spent half a morning, from someone who knows nothing about it, I spent half a morning making this. So I'll give you an example, but I won't take you on the full tour. But I essentially translated our tour of Tupholme Abbey into a Minecraft tour. So I'll let this play for a few minutes, and you can see an example of it in real life. There we go. I'll stop it there. But for anyone who's interested, that is on our YouTube page. So you're very welcome to go on a virtual Minecraft tour of Tupholme if you'd like to have a go at it. But that's Minecraft. That's all it is. And it's essentially just put together by laying blocks. So that's what I did. I learned how to do it. I learned how to build a Minecraft, a sort of minecart track. And sort of I planted some sheep to demonstrate the fact that we do still have sheep there today at our site. So that is that's my contribution to creating this digital Minecraft video. So to finish off then today, what we're going to finish off with is top tips for accessibility. So this is an excellent opportunity to remind you that the whole point of Heritage Open Days is designed to break down barriers to people accessing heritage. Whether that's through removing the pay barrier, so allowing people who maybe couldn't necessarily afford to visit normally to visit, whether it's sort of trying to make areas accessible that aren't normally accessible, whether it's just trying to look at a site in a different way to engage a different audience. That's what it's all about. So digital event, you might think, well, you know what, it doesn't matter, it's a digital event, it doesn't need to be accessible because it's digital. Well, actually we have some really good ways of making sure that even your digital event is super accessible to people. Oops. So if you're only going to do 3 of them, these are 3 that we recommend. So first off, if you are doing any kind of presentation that uses text like we are here today, make sure it's presented on a solid background in high contrast. That helps people who have visual impairment or might be colorblind. It just helps them differentiate and they can read it better. If you are filming, try and avoid flashing images because that will help people with epilepsy. Same with jerky camera movements. People don't realise that it's not just flashing effects. It can be, if your movements are jerky, that can also trigger an epilepsy attack. So that's something to be aware of. And then also, if nothing else, try and consider accessibility throughout the development, marketing and delivery of your event. So think about it from point 1, and then you're not just trying to backtrack and trying to make things accessible. They have already been accessible from day 1. So it's things like we're suggesting here. Write the presentation and think to yourself before you write it, I need to make sure that people can read this, you know, so I'm going to make sure it's on a solid background with high contrast. And then you've saved yourself a job because you then don't have to go back and fix it afterwards. Other ways include considering readability, so don't use complex language if you can help it. Use short sentences, break them up with punctuation and paragraph breaks. Although it's tempting when you're using a digital event, emojis are great, but not everybody appreciates or understands them. So although you might be used to using emojis in your Facebook, your social media posts, don't use them to convey a message. You know, use them for a bit of fun if you want to, but don't sort of replace a full-on word with an emoji. When you're using hashtags, obviously if you're doing sort of social media platforming, you'll be familiar with the concept of hashtags, that they look at what's trending, you know, they see which hashtags are trending. So we've given an example here. This is the official Heritage Open Days tag. So you'll see that they've capitalized Heritage Open in Days. Make sure that any important content in a video is told both audibly and visually if you can. Now these are optional, they are a lot of work, so we don't necessarily expect you to definitely do these, but if you have time, you could also include written descriptions of images. You can also do audio descriptions for people who are visually impaired. You could include closed captions or subtitles on video content. Some platforms, including YouTube, YouTube actually has inbuilt captioning. It's not the most reliable, and there are some very humorous takes on how it sometimes does closed captioning, but it is reasonably advanced. If you're speaking very clearly, it will actually create those captions for you. So you know, that's a nice one to think of if you're pre-recording something. And you could also transcribe audio only content if you have the time to do that. And it just means people can download it at a later time. But we realize that is a big time commitment, so we are, you know, we're not expecting it. It's just, if you think it's going to be an important piece of work, it might be worth doing it, and then you've got it on the record.